welcome to, I think this is the 18th vlog installment.
Yes.
And John is a blanket monster today.
I'm in my sad pout blanket because Slavs are hard.
Slavs are hard, but close to finish.
We're nowhere close to finished. Like, seriously. Like, we just keep throwing stuff away and getting farther and farther, not close to finished.
He's very pessimistic. I'm sure something magical is going to happen in that blanket soon and everything
It's
will
so
be fine.
hard. This is the blanket where I think of things.
Yes. Also where he hides because it's really cold in our house right now. So, today we're going to answer a whole bunch of questions because we have a big grab bag kind of backed up after the holidays. And John's going to answer these questions too. So the first question is, I understand how the Norse are culturally opposed to fire and the Aztecs are culturally opposed to the heavens. But since when did the Greeks start hating trees? And there's some basic confusion about this. But basically this person is saying, you know, why is Uria the antagonist for the Greek pantheon?
Right. Why do they understand why Aztecs hate the stars?
Well, because there's, you know, various races of nasty stone things.
Right. So, question answered.
No, they're asking why the Greeks are opposed to Uria.
I know. Like, so it's the same reasoning, right? Like, he's saying, I understand why these cultures don't like it. Like, they hate trees because Zeus, to make the current world, Zeus needed to murder his father, who is king of, well, not really trees, but
Plants and fertility. And on a...
plants that make food.
Plants in general. And on a larger scale, Uria represents kind of the natural world and the growing of the natural world without the interference of civilization. And the Greek pantheon is all about civilization. They're all about, we're creating, you know, arts and sciences. We're creating ways to use the natural world for our benefit and for the benefit of mankind. So they kind of are automatically, I mean, a lot of pantheons do that, but the Greeks are one of the biggest ones for that kind of opposition to the natural world.
But specifically, the Uria that the Greeks are opposed to, through Kronos, is not the wild nature, but more the cultivated civilization nature.
Well, it's both. I mean, it's ironic that their big titan that is fertility based is also, like, because Kronos is Greek, even though he is a titan avatar, even he can't not, like, bend the natural world to his own purposes. Like, being the Greek fertility titan makes him the least wild of all the fertility titans, pretty much.
Also, the Greeks are rare when Kronos was around, things were awesome.
Yeah, that was great. That was the golden age of humanity. It was awesome.
Where everything was
no one was
wonderful.
unhappy. There were no laws because you didn't need laws because nobody did bad stuff.
I think Brown Book might contradict us there. Does Brown Book say that the golden age was when Hercules existed?
No, that's the Age of Heroes.
That is the Age of Heroes. Okay. All right. Well, which is also a bygone age.
Yes, there are a lot of bygone ages for
I believe there's 5
for the Greeks.
But yeah, so most Titans, it was like a horrible mess, and then the gods came and killed the Titans.
Can you come sit with me? I'm
I am with you. What are you talking
You're like
about?
behind me, far away in the distance.
No.
Yeah.
You're right. It's fine.
I'm like right in the front.
Yeah. I'm not gonna come. There's no room.
You can just move aside.
There's no room. Your butt is too big.
You never know. Come join us. So.
Oh, we had a cool
I think we
levels
mostly,
thing, and you
yeah,
ruined it.
I wasn't enjoying that. So I think we mostly answered that question. So our next question on our random grab bag event is, would it be possible to play a sign of Hode? And if so, what associations would you have?
Sure. Just darkness.
Yeah. You can always play a sign of anybody. It's just that lower legend gods are going to only have like 1 or 2 things associated with them. So you're just not going to get as much of an XP discount for doing that.
Yep.
I don't know if Hode even has darkness. I would say if he has anything, it's war for the leading of the armies against Baldur.
No, maybe. Sure. And then, like...
Because he's blind, but he doesn't really bring darkness. Like, we did stuff with that in our games, but...
Alright. Then, like, melee throne, empathy, awareness.
Yeah, maybe a little
blind,
investigation. We did some searching for people, but... Yeah.
Survival.
So if you're...
Some of those abilities end war.
And war, yeah. He's, you know, it's always cool. If you really like a parent, you should never feel like you can't play them. You just have to know that that means you have a little bit less of an XP discount than if you played somebody who was Legend 12. No big deal.
I mean, there's not much going on with Hood, though. I don't know why he'd be interesting unless you hate beautiful people.
Or you want to, like, you know, I could see you doing some cool stuff, especially with Scions of Baldur or Loki running around. But, so that's all we got for Hode, really. He's not very big bananas in Norse myth. He's only going to do the one thing, and he hasn't even done it yet. So the only thing he's ever done before is fight Baldur and lose.
Get cuckolded.
Yeah, lose. So, our next question, is it possible to revive a fallen Scion, like making it part of a game after someone dies, to go out and try to find a way to return him to life or create something for his ghost to inhabit? How final should death be in Scion? when some gods have been able to cheat death or are fated to die anyway.
Yeah, of course. What?
You can always try and go get someone back as part of it. I mean, unless your storyteller is going to be not letting you do things ever, which storytellers shouldn't, you can always be like, okay, well, that member of our party died, let's go try to get him. Or this person that I really like is dead, let's try to go get him. And you can always go to an underworld and try. I mean, it's really difficult. It's going to be a long journey. You're going to have to get into an underworld. You're going to have to survive an underworld. You're going to have to convince the people that live there to let you do this. You know, you're going to need people with powerful death powers to succeed. But if you do all of that, you know, it's going to be a whole story of its own, but you might be able to do it.
Yeah. Generally at Hero, people don't care enough to.
Yeah, even if it's another PC, if you die as a PC hero and your party's all like Legend 4, they can't go to an underworld. They're not going to make it. They won't survive. It's too hard for them to do. So most of the time, they don't bother to go rescue their friends who have died. And then, you know, by the time they're demigods, they got other stuff to do. So.
Yeah, another important thing is don't make the other players feel like they have to go save you, because that's shitty.
Yeah, I mean, you know, make a new character, suck it up. And, you know, don't feel like... It's wonderful if somebody wants to do that, but they should never have to, and you should never feel like... You never also want... You don't want the dead person to then feel like they can't play their character until you go rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then it becomes a weird, like, do they play a character for, like, a couple of weeks while you're doing that, or do they not play their character and just sit around while you try to rescue them? So, it's more about how your ST wants to run that, but you can always do it. It's just really difficult. If you're, like, mid-level demigod, you can definitely do it, but it's hard. Even gods are going to have a little trouble with that, especially if it's an underworld that doesn't like letting people out, so...
All the others.
Most of the underworlds, yeah. They really aren't about that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a really good reason. Okay.
Question answered.
So, next question. Does Tsukumogami exist only for items that have reached their 100th birthday in your games, the way they do in traditional Japanese folklore? Or, as the default system seems to assume, can Amatsukami signs use Tsukumogami on any item?
We don't use Tsukumogami. It just doesn't really exist.
We haven't used it in a while, but, to answer your question, technically Tsukumogami, the concept, only applies to venerable objects that have been around for 100 years or more. So, like, you know, your shrine gate would have Tsukumogami, but this paper airplane you made yesterday wouldn't. But in order for that PSP to really work for Scion's purposes, it really needs to affect all things. And that's not really that much of a stretch, because even though you don't have the official concept of Tsukumogami as those active spirits inhabiting those items, there's a general Japanese concept of animism that says everything kind of has a little bit of its own spirit. Tsukumogami is sort of like the super version of that. But somebody with the Tsukumogami purview shouldn't feel like they can't do anything with anything that's under 100 years, because that's just too crippling.
Unless your ST says so, and then do what your ST says.
That's true.
If you're the ST asking this question, either works fine. If you're the player and your ST told you the opposite and you're coming to ask so that you can complain to them, shut up, your ST was right.
Yeah,
Don't listen to Anne.
That's the way I would run it, but I'm not your ST, so I'm not the boss of you, he is. So, next question. If a Scion with the loyalty virtue is betrayed by someone they're loyal to, how should they react?
Well, they probably feel bad.
Yeah, they're probably pretty upset about it. But it doesn't make the loyalty go away. So, your choices are really, you can betray them back, but you're going to have to fight your loyalty to do it. Your loyalty won't go away just because they were horrible to you. Or you can just suck it up, which is what most people with loyalty do.
Yeah.
The entire Eastern Pantheon just sucks it up every time Loki makes them upset because they have loyalty, so they're like, well, I'm just dealing with it. It's not fun, but that's... Virtues are kind of like that. Like, they're great when they're working well, but when they work against you, well, they're still there. They're so powerful. You can't be like, I'm not loyal to this guy anymore because he dicked me over, because you are loyal to him.
You suck it up.
Loyalty means forever, no matter what he does to you, pretty much. Next question. What do you think about a Wiccan Scion who works toward being both a powerful magician and creating her own Summerland Death Realm?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that.
You're going to stop being Wiccan.
Pretty fast, probably, because you're going to run into actual gods. And it depends on how your Scion or your ST plays it, of course. But, you know, you're going to run into actual gods, so we're going to demand that you know, make sense to them. And be like, no, there's no such thing as the Forest Lord or whatever. Because there are Wiccan concepts borrowed from various polytheistic religions, but some of them are made up for Wicca especially. And some of them, like, are cross religion, so you might, if your parent is actually Celtic god, and you're borrowing something from, say, the Persian religion, they're going to be like, stop that, you're not Persian. So, it depends on the god and how your storyteller runs it, but there shouldn't be any problem with it.
It doesn't even depend on the god, like, you're just going to realize that you were wrong pretty soon. Like any modern religion, for the most part, unless you're, like, a hardcore ancient theist, like when you're playing Scion, you're going to figure out pretty soon that you're wrong. Yeah. And all the beliefs you had were wrong.
And the more dots of
You're
a
gonna grow
cult you
out of
get, the more you're going to know about the setting of Scion and know how things work. And the more you're going to be like, oh, so this thing that I was taught in like a New Age bookstore doesn't really apply anymore. And you're also, if you have piety, any dots of piety, that's going to pretty much make it impossible to be part of a religion other than the one your pantheon is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing wrong with it, and most characters start out with some religious affiliation other than what they eventually end up with. But
and you could make a Summerland death realm. That's fine.
yeah, that sounds nice. Sounds like the Slavic one we were just talking about.
You can do whatever you want.
Yes. Alrighty, next one. In your stories, which gods from different pantheons have a seething, murder-you-on-sight hatred for each other?
Well,
a lot of them killed each other right now.
Yeah, everybody's dead.
Ryujin wants to kill Sphere. Ryujin and Sphere still hate each other.
Yeah, well,
but,
only a little.
Yeah.
Like, Sir hates Ryujin. Ryujin will just, mostly ignore him.
Or eat him.
Well, yeah, he's there. Amaterasu and Odin hated each other.
Really badly. That was a nasty one.
Yeah.
Set and Horus.
Yeah.
Traditional, but also real bad in our games. To just levels of constant murder bad. Who else is just mad at each other? Loki and Odin got into it at one point, but then they kind of do that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of them, they can't really afford that kind of just blind hatred, because it's just politically bad. If they're smart, they'll deal with it and not murder each other. If they're stupid, they have handlers who will deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Athena and Andarta.
Yeah.
That went real badly. Yeah.
It's true.
But yeah, for the most part, they're gonna suck it up and deal with the fact that they hate that person without going to a murderous rampage most of the time, unless they fail like a virtue roll or something.
Look on.
What?
Look at my face. I'm just got the poker.
That's the magic of lighting. So, I can tell John is getting bored with our vlogging. Yeah, you lost it. So, to continue this talk about gods that don't like each other, if Frigg has just found out that Isis messed with one of her kids, and she's out for blood, who would win in a conflict, physical, social, mental, or magical, between those two ladies?
Stop asking questions like this. They don't make any sense. Your question makes no sense.
Also, the answer is no one. No one would win.
Like, the two of them would go off and do magic from far away for 1,000 years.
Ruin everything the other person was doing. No one wins because everybody that's related to them is going to get the fallout from this at some point in some way.
Yeah, and it's possible they would just get the fuck over it.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are two really, really politically savvy ladies who, maybe would do a couple of things to feel better, but then would be like, it's not worth it to keep this feud up.
Right, it'd be way easier to just be like, okay, go manipulate somebody from a different pantheon to go smash something of theirs, and they would never probably see each other or have to deal with each other. Yeah,
especially since you're not saying Isis didn't kill one of Frigg's children. There's no big problem, so nobody has to go out for the level of I need wereguild for this, so they're just gonna be kind of bitchy to each other and get over it probably.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was bad enough they kept doing it, it would just be something they did forever, and life would just suck around them.
Well, and then Odin and Ra would stop them.
Yeah, Odin and Ra would be like, please,
calm it down, simmer down. But any question that's hey, who'd win in a fight between X and X doesn't make sense.
There's just so many variables.
At God level, it just doesn't happen. You're not.
Yeah, Thor's not going to have a fight with Amaterasu. He's just not. No one's going to let that happen. There's no reason for it.
Maybe they'll hit each other a couple times and then it will be stopped.
Yeah, and there's almost no reason that would ever get to that point in the first place, because you have so many gods who are so good at their social stats, are so good at politically dealing with situations. They're not going to let that happen. You just ruined all the lighting. What'd you do?
What?
You ruined the lighting. Look.
It's all bouncing off my.
Your blanket. Yeah, you should take that off. Come on, be a human. Be a human for the rest of the vlog.
It's my sadness blanket.
So yeah, those questions, and even if it's two war gods who theoretically might get into a fight, it's not gonna, there's no way you can know who's gonna win. They're both super badass war gods. Anything could happen. It depends on what's happening around them and what they've been doing lately, and a million other things we can't possibly guess. So, unless you're building some kind of god versus god fighting game, those questions really are not answerable.
If you're building a god versus god fighting game, everyone should be equal.
That's true. Because
learn to balance games.
Yeah, because otherwise there's no point in playing anybody but the best guy. But anyway, next question. Reading over your Titans again, a thought struck me. What would you do if one of your players seduced one of the avatars intentionally or otherwise? Well, Gianni's married to Erebus, so that already happened pretty much.
I don't understand your question.
I mean, it depends on the avatar and what happens.
Sugar probably burned your penis.
Yeah, I mean they're all different, so getting into a romantic relationship with Surtur is not the same as getting into one with Selene. not the same things are going to happen and not the same consequences are going to apply. You're going to probably always have some issues with, you might get some dark virtues, or you might, depending on how close you get to this Titan, what happens.
And what the Titan's goals are, and like what the bad things will happen, but like maybe you can make good things happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're people. It's a story. Whatever your ST wants.
Yeah, you know, they're characters, so they're going to do, they're not just like formless things that are happening to you. You know, if you go and seduce a Titan avatar, I assume you have a reason for that, something you're trying to do, so you may or may not succeed at that thing, depending on how well you do and what your storyteller rules, and then the Titan avatar, depending on their personality, is going to respond according to their personality. So,
Yep.
Gianni being married to her,
Last
this has
question.
actually been pretty okay for her. He's, you know, he's chauvinistic dick, but you know, it's Greeks for you. So, last question: in your opinion, what is the minimum number of players you need to run a Scion game?
2, 1 ST and 1 player. That's
Technically, you can run anything
Yeah.
pretty much with 1 player.
probably won't be super fun for very long.
You'll run into the problem with the fewer players you have, the less largest scale conflicts you can be in. Because if you've only got 1 or 2 players, then you can't, you know, go into like situations where you have a lot of enemies, or situations where, you know, you have to do everything kind of, you have to do everything differently, I guess. You have to.
I like 6 if everyone's really good. I like 5 if everyone's not really good about a lot of stuff, like splitting up or splitting up too often, or sharing the spotlight, or working with each other on stuff and really obeying socials and stuff without having to roll it a lot. Like 6 people works really well. 5 is probably the golden number for most people, and then 4 is doable.
Yeah, we've done anywhere from 4 to 6 consistently without having too many problems. Fewer than 4, you get down to storyteller has fewer options that he can really do for things you can pull off as a tiny group, and then more than 7 or more, it becomes like there's no time for everyone to get spotlight, and it's hard to hear each other, and it becomes a mess. So you want to stick with that. 5 is like the best number, and you want to stick with close to that pretty much. And that is all our questions. And I just lost John, so that's going to be it for us. If you want any clarification or you have new questions, just let us know, as always. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, go deal with my blanket.
Goodbye, everyone.
Eskimo.
We will see you next week. Wait, no next week.
What's next week?
There's a wedding?
Okay, yeah, then we'll be out of town next
That's 2
week.
weeks from now.
Okay, he doesn't know what he's talking about. There may or may not, we'll let you know. Don't even worry about it.
Goodbye, everyone. The slots are going to be bad.
They're not going to be bad. They're going to
I
be
mean, they're
awesome.
going to be good, but it's going to be a while.
He promised me it would be this weekend. That's what we're shooting for.
Can't happen.
It's going to happen. See you guys later.
Ah!